Otherwise I have to take it loose. So I'm just going to pin it instead of sewing it, since I'm only doing a temporary demo on this, because I'm not quite complete on the other faces. So this seam in here is going to be 1/4 of an inch. And the reason for it is that what we're doing is we're creating, see how you work through this little hole, you know, the little opening. We're going to work through that. And you might say, oh, this is not going to work. But you'd be amazed how much room you got. You can do it with less than that. But you know, why stress it when you can have a little more room doing it? So this demo is a little bit improvised, and we're going to do it one day again. But for right now, because we are a little bit pressured time-wise trying to get this done before finals, and so I'm sure that you all smart enough to follow me on this. This is pinned right now, but of course you know that this is going to be what seam, how much we're going to sew here?
1/4 inch.
Right, and if you have a little room like this one, there's 2 ways to deal with that. You can ease it in, or you can maybe clip the lining a little bit, or if really, you can take in a seam a little bit on the bottom. For right now, I'm just going to ease it in. I'm doing a 1/4 inch seam to get the maximum for a action pleat on the bottom of the, you know. So by the time we get to this other side, do I have to go that far? Or are you guys smart enough to figure it out? Should I smile? Yes, I should. Because, okay. All right, I'm just going to kind of skip along a little bit, because we can, see, you can work this all the way to the other side. I'm almost there. Where is it? Okay, so when you get to this side, what did I tell you?
Leave an inch.
Right, see, you already got it. Again, line up your corners. You kind of line them up, but we're gonna leave about 1 inch open. Okay? All right, very good. So this is going to be a 1/4 inch seam, and after we did that seam, I'm going to have to be a little bit careful since I'm only pinning it. So we're pretending. See? It's going to look like this. Now, here you can figure out why you left that inch open, right? Because when you go to here, you have part of it is underneath, so this part is underneath, so the lining has to be able to, you know, come over it. Now, to finish this, on both sides for that matter, but you start by turning this part down here, like about 1/4 of an inch or so, just kind of fold it in there. This is some hand sewing, okay? You're going to slip stitch this part, and you only have to slip stitch up to where the hem is finished, see? So then in here it stays open, flat again. You don't want to turn it in all the way. It needs to come back out so that it's flat. Then, you see, you press this. You see, this comes over like that. Okay, before we do that though, we have to do one more thing. before we finish the corners, you know where your hem is. You're going to go back in here and you find where the seams are. See, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seams, okay? You're going to move back in here, leave it, you know, how it falls, and then you're going to tack this down because you cannot have the hem loose. So you tack your hem with the lining on the seams, okay? Once you did that, then we're going to go and finish this. So over here, you know, just assume that this is now all in order. You know, it cannot be opened. So you can tack from here if you want, but you cannot not to see it over here.
Okay.
All right? So you line this up, you press it, you line it up, and then very nicely invisible, of course. You slip stitch this first, then you put your lining, make sure nothing shows, and then you slip stitch this close. So this is open, but the sides are slip stitched to the bottom. Same over here, only this time when you do this side, again, we're going to fold these little sides first, and you just kind of let them run out. Basically, you cannot have an open edge where it's visible. See, this is exposed, so you cannot just leave it like that. So you have to do, you turn it under, you clean it up. You always clean things up. But this one you clean up in such a way that it's going to come out where it's flat, okay? So we're going to slip stitch this here first, and then you do the same thing you did on the other side, only this time we're going to have to slip stitch. Now just remember, this is the 1/2 inch seam, so you just bring it right back on that 1/2 inch and slip stitch invisible, you know, and incorporate the, you know, the little pleat down here, okay, like that, see? And you go all the way to the bottom, and that's your hem, okay, that's your hem.
But that's going to be a raw
Now,
edge. But that's going to be a raw edge in the end. Like this part is going to just be...
This is just pressed.
No, like this side that you just did, that's going to be like a raw edge of the linings.
No, it's
So you'll fold
folded.
it under?
It's folded.
And you
The
slip
seam
stitch
is folded under.
Okay.
You just followed the seam that you opened up and you put it back together.
Okay.
You see, remember we opened this up?
Okay.
Now you close it again.
Yeah.
Just slip stitch it. Okay, so that would be your hem. Then, at some point, remember how we did this pleat here? And we clipped our little base stitchings? Now you can go and pull them out. Woo-hoo. Yes, hoo-hoo. I did that one okay. All right, see? So you have actually 2 action pleats, right? You got one in the center back, because, are you getting that center back?
Wait, do that little
You
dance
have
again.
one action pleat in the back. That's this one. This is an action pleat for movement, because your fabric has a certain amount of stretch, but lining doesn't. Unless you cut it on a bias or something, but lining you have to create some give. And the same thing is like when you sit down, you know, if you move like this, this will move too. So you need these little extras for movement. Now, after we have all this, before you finish your lining, you have a choice of lining up your placket and then Now this overlap, you can determine it by just follow your, the cutting line on the inside. Fold it, make sure the under part is just a little bit further down so it doesn't peek out. You can put a pin there to keep it from moving. Now basically it's after you blind stitch this, you blind stitch your hem, then you mark your buttons. Just a minute, I had a pencil. Okay, I can use a marker like that. Basically, let's say you have a 1/2 inch button or less. You shouldn't have more than a 1/2 inch for something like this. Now, a 1/2 inch, your extension on a button is always half the button plus a 1/4. So a 1/2 inch would be how much? This is a trick question.
3/4.
Because no, because a 1/2 inch is 1/4 is half, and plus a 4. I mean, 1/4 is half of a half. Plus a 4 brings you back to a 1/2 inch. It only starts to make a difference when you go into like an inch. When you have an inch button, then your extension would be half the button, which is a 1/2 inch, plus a 4, which then would be 3/4. So it starts to change the bigger the button is. You're smaller, a 1/4, 3/8, it's the same. So a 1/2 button, you have some markings on your pattern if you want to use those, but you can also say, like your formula for this one would be, you come up an inch, at least an inch or 1.25 inches, okay? Because you want to have a nice proportion, okay? And then you make an inch apart. Just kind of do an inch apart and a 1/2 inch in. So your 3 buttons would be like this. Let me show you a sample on, you see, it would look like this for a 1/2 inch button. See, you have an 1.25 inches for the first button, 1/2 inch in, and an inch apart. Now the buttons, when you sew them on, you sew them all the way through. Not here, but when you first start in here, you sew them all the way through. That's how you hold this pleat in place. You know, it's a fake placket. So, and then also you have to leave like your little neck on the button, you know, to make it perfect. And so you do the buttons first, and the reason for that is because when you bring your lining over, you don't want to see the stitches from the buttons. Okay, after that, you take your lining from, you know, by this time you got your shoulder, everything, you got it tucked on the inside, everything in place. Now you put your hand in here with your lining, and you want to make sure that the right seams line up. See, you find your seams, and you line them up with these seams, right? Okay? Now, I'm not going to take that for granted until I double check. Okay. Now, here is the rule again. Basically, the lining hits the hemline, okay? Because the lining is minus the hem on the sleeve, which is 1.5 inches. So, you line up where the seams are, and over here, just remember, the seam is the edge of the, you know, see that? The edge of the placket. So you put it there and give yourself a little pin to make sure, then double check